How many in here know or suspect that you might have an autoimmune condition? Show of hands, please. Hold them high for a minute. High. Okay, about half the room. Thank you. About that. Okay. So to address if you'd like to swing around so that you, because I'm a chiropractor, I can't. 45 minutes. It's okay to turn around when you like. When you're addressing whatever diagnosis you have, whatever it is, the only way to clearly address a diagnosis successfully is like this. I'm told this is not a Photoshop. How many years did he train to be able to do this? How many years? Decades, probably. Probably. You know, being around these animals, the little calves at first, and you know, just ramping up. That's what it takes to reverse the momentum of a diagnosed disease. And you'll learn later that practically every disease is an autoimmune disease, that the mechanism that causes cardiovascular disease is autoimmune. The mechanisms that initiate cancer are autoimmune. So it's your immune system trying to protect you, and for whatever reason there's collateral damage, and here comes a tissue that eventually doesn't function very well. How many of you have seen my book, The Autoimmune Fix? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So if you've read it, then you've got a sense of this. But this is what it takes. Well, I can have a little gluten once in a while. Well, no, you can't. When you read the science, you just can't. So, I'm not doing a formal presentation. I just put a few slides together to give you some OMG slides, you know, oh my gosh, kind of slides. But I want to talk about, for a minute, where does disease come from? And how have we been trained to address whatever disease you have? Recurrent miscarriages, Hashimoto's thyroid disease. Well, it doesn't matter. What happens, it's kind of like, when you get a diagnosis, it's like you have fallen over a waterfall into the pond below. And you swim up to the surface and you try to get the water up, and you're trying to stay afloat in this pond of the symptoms of diabetes, or this pond of recurrent migraines, or this pond of rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis. It doesn't matter what the pond is. You're trying to stay afloat in the pond of those symptoms. But it's really difficult because the waterfall keeps coming down into the pond. So the water's very turbulent, and it's hard to stay afloat in a turbulent pond, right? So everybody's looking for the life jacket to stay afloat in the pond and to relax in the pond of your diabetes, or in the pond of your high blood pressure, or in the pond of your lupus, or in the pond of your MS. We're looking for the life jacket, and you want the life jacket with the least side effects possible. So you try the complementary, integrative, functional medicine approach first, and if that doesn't work, you do the drugs, because you have to function in the pond, right? You can't be at home dysfunctional, so you do what you have to. So you try for the ones with the least side effects first, right? So you get the life jacket with the least side effects possible, then you swim over to the side of the pond, get out of the water, walk up the hill, go back up the river and figure out what the heck fell in the river that eventually carried you downstream, and you crashed into this pond of diabetes, right? That's what you have to do with Alzheimer's. That's why my friend Dr. Dale Bredesen has written this book, The End of Alzheimer's. It came out last March, and he's documented reversing, this is at UCLA, completely reversing over 100 cases of Alzheimer's. Over 100. And now there are centers all over the world that are doing the Bredesen protocol. What is it? 37 things on a checklist. Do they have this? Fix it. 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 It takes 5 years because there's so much damage. You're in such a turbulent pond that you've got to see. any disease you get, it's like you were healthy, went down, went down, went down, went down, symptoms started, down, down, some more symptoms. Now you get a diagnosis, and the term is, you're going down, right? So what everybody wants is to go like this. But that never happens. What you have to do is stop the momentum first, and then start to raise so that you can go up, right? Well, it takes 5 years if you've got a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but there's over 100, there's many more than 100 now. That was a year ago when that book came out, so there's many more than that now. It's not rocket science, but I mean, each point, for example, and he said this a couple of months ago, he said, you know, there's 5 different types of Alzheimer's. And the most common type of Alzheimer's, he thinks over 60% of all Alzheimer's is called inhalation Alzheimer's. It's what you breathe that's causing the brain damage. It was in the 1990s that they published the research. Every dog in Mexico City had evidence of Alzheimer's. When they did autopsy on the dogs, they all had evidence of Alzheimer's. In the early to mid 2000s, the urine test and the blood test came out. Every child that they check in Mexico City has evidence of the inflammatory cascade depositing beta amyloid plaque in their brains that eventually they'll get Alzheimer's. Every single child that they check. The air pollution is so bad. You're sucking it in every day. You want to know how bad the air is here? Here? Wash your car, go to a really nice car wash. You know where the guys have this thing on their hip? They come out and they right, and they wipe it down for you, right? They've got those here, don't they? Really nice car washes. So get a really nice car wash. This is an investment in your health when you do this. Go to not the self-serve kind. Go to the really nice car wash where they squirt it, and they wipe it down, and all that. Drive home. Leave the car outside for 4 hours. Set your alarm. Go outside and run your hand across the windshield. That's what you're breathing all day, every day. You just can't see it, but that's what you're breathing all day, every day. It's into your lungs, goes right through the capillaries, into the bloodstream, straight up to your brain, gets through the breach of the blood-brain barrier. You've heard of leaky gut? Well, there's leaky brain. So you get a leaky brain from these chemicals. Those molecules, that particulate matter, get right into the brain, activates the most powerful immune system in your body. There's 4 immune systems. The one in the brain is the most powerful of all of them. Activates that immune system to destroy that particle that got in the brain that shouldn't be there. That's what the immune system is supposed to do. But it's not supposed to do it 24/7, every day, every month, every year, because you keep inhaling more of this stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And it's the most common type of Alzheimer's. Most common. About 60+% of Alzheimer's cases, Dale thinks now, Dr. Bredesen thinks, are inhalation Alzheimer's. And where do you get it here? Mold. This is England. Your houses are old. You know, your castles and all, you know, they're old. Mrs. Patient, if you go on vacation for a week or two and you come home, do you have to open the windows to air the house up? Oh, yeah. You got mold. You're breathing it in every day. You all should check your homes if you have an older home. Oh my God, what do? You get rid of the mold. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not a mold remediation specialist. Go find out. But you never look if you don't check, right? You never know to fix something if you don't check to see if it's there. Does that make sense to you? Especially for those of you that have a family history of brain cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia. How many have a family history? Show of hands. Come on, hold them high. Let's just see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 in this room. It's very common. That just means that you may carry the gene that makes you more vulnerable. You may not, but you may carry the gene. So what happens if you have the gene for Alzheimer's? It's called ApoE4. Everyone should be checked for that. Everyone. You get 1 gene from your mother, 1 gene from your father in the ApoE series. It's a 2, 3, or 4. So you can be a 2-2, got a 2 from your mother, 2 from your father, a 2-3, a 2-4, a 3-3, a 3-4, or a 4-4. Those are the options. When I did my test and it came back, I opened it up and I was 3-3, and I watched my response. My response was, whew, great, I'm normal. The normal in the US, I'm sure it's similar here, I don't know the statistics here, the normal in the US is that if you reach the age of 85, 50% of us will have Alzheimer's. If you reach the age of 85, that's common. If you have 1-4, it's 90% of us by the age of 85 will have Alzheimer's. If you have 2 4s, it's 90% of us will have Alzheimer's by the age of 65. Those are the stats. But here's the good news in all that, because those are horrible statistics, aren't they? Especially if you're a 4. But here's the good news. All those people that developed Alzheimer's, that they saw that they had the 4, they kept eating ding-dongs and ho-hos and drinking Coca-Cola. They kept the lifestyle going that was fueling the inflammation. You pull at a chain, it breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end, your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your weak link is. So their weak link is their brain, because they've got that gene. So stop pulling on the chain so hard, right? Stop doing the inflammatory things that are pulling on the chain. Does that make sense to you? That is not rocket science. Every practitioner should be talking to their patients about stop pulling on the chain in whatever language they want, but it's called an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Whatever that means for you. It might be the foods you're eating, it might be the air you're breathing, it might be the plasticizers. Oh, there's one. Can I borrow that for a moment, please? So let's say, well, no, this is a good one because it's a plastic straw also. Right? So, you know, you go to the coffee shop, and these are worse than the coffee shop ones, unless it's from here. Is this from here? Okay, well, these are clean. Good, 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 good. So these are clean, but the ones that you usually get, so these are clean. But let's take the example of you go to the coffee shop, you get coffee to go. The hot liquid, the steam rises up, it condenses on the underside of the lid, drips back down to the coffee, full of bisphenol A. Bisphenol A is a plasticizing chemical that's used with all kinds of plastic things. You put it up to your lips, the hot liquid hits the whole underside of the lid, it tapers down into the opening, full of bisphenol A. Bisphenol A binds onto your estrogen and testosterone receptor sites. So you have estrogen problems eventually. You have testosterone problems eventually. So plastic wrap on your food leaches into the food, the plasticizers. You can't use plastic wrap. You can't use plastic containers to store your food in the refrigerator. Because even when it's cold, it leaches into the food. And there is no problem with a single cup of coffee with the lid. No problem at all. The exposure you get is minuscule. But it's accumulative in your body. It's accumulative. So let's talk about the accumulative concept. It was either Finland or Norway, I don't remember. The government had a commission, 3 years. They studied this for 3 years, and there were no delays. They were actively reviewing this. Should we recommend that women with first pregnancies do not breastfeed? Do not breastfeed. Why? Well, because, you know, the fjords where the fish are in between these countries are kind of narrow. They're deep, and there's lots of fish there, but they're narrow. And the farmers have been using these really toxic chemicals up in the mountains for years, and the rivers run the toxic chemicals down into the fjords, so the fish are full of these PCBs, these really toxic chemicals, and the people eat the fish. And these toxic chemicals accumulate. They're called endocrine disruptors. They disrupt your hormones, which means they accumulate in your hormone-loving cells. So for women, that's the reproductive system, and the brain. So that's the breast. For men, it's the testes and the brain, right? So when you eat salmon, farm-raised salmon is much, much worse. But when you eat salmon from the fjords, where the chemicals have been coming down into the water for years, and the fish have absorbed the chemicals, when you eat it, you get exposed to these toxic chemicals, minor amounts. No evidence that eating one fish is going to bother you. But the chemicals, if your detox pathways aren't perfect, and these chemicals don't get broken down and eliminated, they accumulate in the endocrine-loving cells. Your testes, your reproductive system, your breasts, they accumulate there. So 25 years of eating fish that have PCBs in it, what do you think happens? You get loaded full of PCBs. But you can't tell because there's no PCB disease. There are things that happen because of PCB accumulation. But now, mom gets pregnant, has a healthy pregnancy, has a healthy delivery. The brain says, about to have a delivery, let's start lactating here, let's start making some milk to feed this baby. The milk is made in the lactation glands in the breast. Now, when you get these toxic chemicals in your body, and you can't get rid of them, they're in the bloodstream, the brain says, get this stuff away from me. And so these toxic chemicals get pulled into storage. Where do they go? Where's the storage? The fat cells in the body. After the age of about 2, 3 maybe, you don't get more fat cells. Ever. Ever. They just get bigger and smaller. So when you've gained weight, there's some muscle and all that you gain also, but when you have more fat, it's that your fat cells are swelling. What are they swelling with? Full of toxic chemicals. That's why some people, they're carrying extra weight, they're trying to get rid of it, and they can't, even when they don't eat for a day or two, they can't lose a couple of pounds. It's because it's a toxic response of the body. The fat cells are not going to let go of this stuff, right? But now mom's lactating, so the breast milk in a firstborn, in a first baby, first pregnancy, the breast milk is highly loaded. There's no question that this is toxic breast milk for these babies. And these babies have immature, undeveloped immune systems. They can't handle the overload. Do you wonder why autism has gone from, when I was in practice, it was 1 out of every 4,800 in 1980 when I came out in practice. Now, by 2026, MIT says it'll be 1 child in 2. 1 in 2 in less than 10 years. How is that possible? And do autistic children function well in the world? A few of them do, but not many. Most of them don't. Who's going to pay for these kids when they're young adults and their parents die? Who's going to pay for? Who's going to take care of these kids? Right? Well, we just keep blindly using our saran wrap on our food. Well, but now you know, so you're not blinded anymore to it. You know, now you'll see. Hopefully, you'll at least start looking in. You'll go to Google. You'll go to that great librarian in the sky, Google, and say, type in plastic and brain disease, plastic and lupus, plastic and MS. Here come the studies. You'll just see them. You might not understand the studies, but you'll see the names, and you'll see, wow, there really is something to this, right? So, 3 years they studied this, 3 years. And they finally, their conclusion was, with a lot of lobbying effort from the industry, the conclusion was, oh, it's much more important to breastfeed. I personally agree with that, but my recommendation is to get to the young women in this room tonight and to get to women of childbearing age to say, you guys need a detox before you get pregnant. It takes 6 months. Get that crud out of your body. Get it, it's like, wake up. Wake up. Because it's your future babies that'll pay the price for the rest of their lives. Just read the studies. This is like a wake-up call. Listening to me is a wake-up call, right? I never thought that I would be this way, but the World Wildlife Fund published a study just under 2 years ago in conjunction with 2 major universities that from 1970 to 2012, there has been, on average, a 58% reduction of populations of all vertebrate species on the planet. Anything that has a spine, in 42 years, 58% reduction in the population. For the aviaries, it was 35%. For those mammals living near fresh water, it's 78%. 78% of everything is gone. Gone in 42 years. The beavers, the porcupines, the wolves, anything near fresh water, they're drinking the water. And if you were drinking the water coming out of the streams and the rivers, you'd get cancer quicker, you'd be unable to reproduce just like the animals, right? That's the first study. Here's the second study. They did a meta-analysis, means they look at many, many studies on one subject. They looked at 186 studies, and the subject was sperm count in healthy men from 1970 to 2011. So this was 41 years. So the time span is almost identical. What did they find? Across the board, healthy men, there's a 59% reduction in sperm count. Across the board. Scientists worry about extinction of a species at 72%. We're at 59% in 41 years. What do you think is going to happen in the next 20 years? These chemicals bind onto your testes, onto the testosterone receptor sites, and you don't make enough sperm. They bind onto the breast cells, in the fat cells, and you produce toxic breast milk, let alone the ovarian cysts and the uterine fibroids that are so prevalent now. You know, it just goes on and on and on. I just have to say, wake up, wake up. So autoimmunity, clinically, what you see in clinical practice, somewhere between 5 to 7 out of every 10 people, if you check them properly, they have an autoimmune mechanism going on. That's how frequent it is, because most of us are walking around in the early stages of some disease. And when we go for a physical, we hope the doctor's going to tell us we're healthy, right? We're worried when the test results come in. He's sitting there looking at the test, and you're sitting on the other side of the table, and you're just all worried. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? Am I healthy? We should be going in for tune-ups to make sure that we feel great. We do that for our cars, don't we? You take your car in for its 5,000, 10,000 mile oil change, whatever the manual says, the owner's manual, because we pay a lot of money for the car. Right? When's the last time you did a tune-up on your body? Oh, how ridiculous. No. When's the last time you got a massage just because you wanted to be nice to yourself? Right? We don't think that way. We wait till our bodies are breaking down, we've fallen over the waterfall into the pond below, and we go to get a life jacket so that we don't feel the symptoms anymore. And we don't go upstream to say, what the heck happened? How come I feel like this? How come I got cancer? What do you mean I've got high blood pressure? Well, it's stress. Well, no, it's not. You know, certainly emotional and spiritual imbalances are one of the 4 quadrants that have to be addressed and will cause anything, any disease, lupus, MS, miscarriages can be because of stress. It doesn't matter what the condition is. One of the 4 quadrants is stress, but you don't say, well, it's stress, I guess I'll live with it. No, you got to figure out what the heck is it that I'm not dealing with very well that's causing me to get so keyed up producing stress hormones that are triggering all of these physical responses, right? Okay. Oh, I forgot to hit start. Okay, we just started. That's the book. This book is 35 years of my life. There it is. Thanks so much. 35 years. And the ideas in there are not mine. They're not mine. There's 300 studies that everything in there is referenced. And it was my mentors that taught me, helped me form my method of communication, right? And so I have a way of speaking. Maybe it's because I'm half Italian. I'm all over it like this all the time, right? But usually people can grab some really sophisticated concepts at a base level and say, well, that just makes sense. So you never want to eat farm-raised salmon. Never. The level of toxicity in it is horrible. Just horrible.
Does that also apply to organic salmon?
Does it also apply to organic farm salmon? As far as I know, yes. Yes, there is one study that says yes, in the Journal of the American Medical Association, that the level of toxicity in the fish, the PCBs in the fish, are still very high. Because the water they're swimming in is contaminated because of the farmers spraying their fields, and then the runoff from the rain comes down into. Now, if they've got a pond and they've got control of the spring water, or they're filtering it, I don't know. But caution, extreme caution is advised with farm-raised fish. Extreme caution. Let's see here. What did I put next? Oh, a case study. I'm going to give you a case study. Here's a 43-year-old guy that goes in to see a dermatologist because he's losing his hair. He's diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, Alopecia Areata. It's a really big Scrabble word, a couple of Scrabble words, right? But it just means you're losing your hair. Okay? So here's what it looked like, and he's 44, and this is what's happening to him. And you can see over here, most doctors don't think to look at that, but when you're missing stubble, when the stubble is missing from an area, that's alopecia. Doesn't matter if it's on your head or on your chin. That's alopecia, right? So they gave him the standard steroids to try to suppress the immune system for this autoimmune disease. They didn't work. They didn't work at all. So then somebody noticed that he complained of dyspepsia. He has problems with digestion, burping, belching, a little abdominal discomfort. So they checked him. He had an infection of Helicobacter pylori, H. pylori. Very common bug. Over 50% of the world's population have that. One study said 90% of the world's population. But in more industrialized countries, about 50%. That means half this room has Helicobacter and don't know it right now. If you have any burping, any belching that comes and goes, it's there more often than not. You just have to be checked to see, do you have a Helicobacter infection? He did. So they gave him the standard treatment for Helicobacter infection is triple dose antibiotics. And there are natural ways that you might try first for the life jacket. You might try that. You get this bug out of there. So they did, and it worked. But he was told not to take or apply any medications for alopecia. Just stop all that. That's not working, obviously. Just get rid of the Helicobacter. Let's see what happens. So they did. The Helicobacter was gone in the recheck 6 weeks later. It was gone. And so here's what his hair loss looked like when he came in. And here it is after 4 weeks. Look what's happening here. Here. And the stubble after 4 weeks. Here's 8 weeks. Here's 16 weeks. Here's 44 weeks. You completely reverse an autoimmune disease. And he's going to lose all of his hair, very common. You completely reversed it in this case by getting rid of a bacteria in the stomach. Because you go back upstream to say, what the heck's causing the autoimmune disease? Where is it coming from? And if you read my book, you will understand this concept of molecular mimicry, meaning the immune system is going after the bacteria, so it's looking for this special signature, like a colored vest. Shoot anybody that's got a pink vest on. That's Helicobacter. So the immune system's looking for the pink vest. And that's amino acids, different amino proteins, different amino acids. Well, some of your tissue, the walls of your tissue include pink vests, those amino acids. So the antibodies going after the bacteria say, oh, look over there. And they fire their chemical bullets at your thyroid, or at your hair follicles, or at your joints, and you get rheumatoid, or at your skin, and you get psoriasis. Doesn't matter what the symptoms are. It doesn't matter. That's wherever the weak link is in your chain, that's where it will manifest. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's from the World Journal of Gastroenterology. They said, look at this guy. Completely reversed an autoimmune disease where he was predicted to go bald. Right? Alopecia areata, gone. by killing off Heliobacter. Now, what do we know about Heliobacter? Well, we know that it's associated with a lot of different conditions. Behçet's, I won't get into those names, but sclerosis, Sjogren's, that's an autoimmune disease, atrophic gastritis, well, this is when you get iron deficiencies, you get anemias, thyroid disease, hardening of the arteries, high blood pressure, unstable angina, chest pain, ischemic heart disease, Alzheimer's, sclerosis. All of these may be caused by a Heliobacter infection. They may be, if the molecular mimicry in your weak link is in that tissue. Does that make sense to you? So how many of you think it's okay to have Heliobacter infections? Good. How many of you have some gut upset every once in a while? Show of hands, come on. Look around the room. Hold them high for a minute, please. Hold them high. Look around the room. 50% of the world's population has a Heliobacter infection, which may just give you a little bit of an annoyance in your tummy, but the antibodies may be going after your blood vessels right now and your pipes are plugging up, and you're going to get a heart attack. And it could have been from a Heliobacter infection that you never bothered to get checked. You're on notice now. I just put you on notice. If you raise your hand, you need to be checked for a Heliobacter infection. Do you guys check for Heliobacter? So if your doctor won't, come here and get it done. Yes?
My daughter had it, but she didn't have any stomach.
Right. You don't have, thank you. You don't have to have stomach symptoms.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I had it.
Yeah. You don't have to have stomach symptoms. So these two ladies here, one had it, and for another was your sister, your daughter, did you say?
My daughter,
Your
yeah.
daughter. And they didn't have stomach issues, but they had it. So their doctors were smart enough to check for it.
I had endometriosis.
Say it again?
I had endometriosis.
Endometriosis, yeah. Kaboom. I love it when, you know, those old Batman comic books, kaboom! Right? There's another slam dunk. Alopecia has been associated with psoriasis, celiac, because of an H. pylori infection. So we're going to go for a little ride here, right? Go flying. So I just wanted to show you that case study just to open up this whole topic of molecular mimicry. You don't need to be medical doctors here, but you need to be advocates for yourself until you find a healthcare practitioner that you know is on top of this. When you find someone like that, you use them, right? I just got the best chiropractic adjustment today here, and I'm so grateful, thank you so much, from a master. Just a master. Now I actually was going to go to the same chiropractic school in Toronto in 1978. And I went up there, and there was a reason why I couldn't go there at the last minute, so I went to the school in Chicago. But we graduated at the same time. She's marvelous. So if you need a chiropractor, this is the place to be if you don't have one. And if you don't think you need a chiropractor, wake up. Wake up. We are not designed to drive cars like this, right? You tilt the seat back and we're like this. And so I'm trying to stand up, and that means you're walking like this. Have somebody video you and when you don't know that they're videoing you, and just watch how you walk. You walk like this, right? And your car seats have a lot to do with that. So what do? Every month, on the first of the month, you click your car seat forward one click. Just one click. Because if you try to do it all at once, you're going to strain your back, going to put a lot of load on your back. Just one click. And in 6 months, you'll be sitting up straight driving. But you've got to see somebody to help get your spine moving better. There are 4 different sides to the pyramid of health, right? You've got a pyramid that's 3-sided, but there's 4 sides to it. There's a base, right? The base is musculoskeletal, chiropractic, original osteopathy, Feldenkrais, Alexander technique, massage, yoga, all of these things, car seats, pillows, how we sit, how we sleep, all of that. There's no condition that may not be caused by a mechanical problem. There is no condition. Read the science. There's no condition. And now we know why. Back in the old days, the old time chiropractors didn't know. They just knew that they did a little adjusting and people's hearing got better, people's kidney problems went away. And so they came up with this whole gobbledygook reason for it that doesn't make any sense today, but it works. Now we know the science as to how it works. So the mechanical side, which is the base of the pyramid, is a critical side that you all include in your healthcare regime. You might see a chiropractor once every few months. You might get a massage once every couple of weeks. Oh, I couldn't do that. Why not? Oh my gosh, that I'm really taking care of myself, then I can't do that. Listen to your mind. Listen to the yabba 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 that we put up with. How many feel they're a little stressed in their muscles? Come on. What a silly question. Of course. Most everyone raises their hand. Of course. Well, you want to walk around like this all day? Right? I'm exaggerating, but this is how we walk. How's the blood flow when you're walking like this? Not very good, right? Right? And if you walk like this all day, you're compressing your chest, so you can't expand your ribs with every breath. You have to expand your ribs because that tiny little expansion, you're milking the organs inside the chest cavity. And when you milk the organs, you're kind of pumping them a little bit. Every time you take a breath, a deep breath, every time you do. Here's something for you. Set your alarm to ring once every hour. Every waking hour, well, once every hour, and then turn it on airplane mode when you go to sleep. But once every hour. When that alarm goes off, irrespective of what you're doing, stop what you're doing, take 5 deep breaths. Let's just try that for a minute. Let's just take 5 deep breaths. Watch what happens. Just humor me. So like, oh God, okay. Just humor me, all right? Just take a deep breath. And again. And again. Again. And once more. It takes 20 seconds. 20 seconds. And then you get back to your phone call, so that when you're talking to somebody, you're just conscious of breathing while you're talking to them. Or just excuse me, I'll be right back. Put the phone down. 20 seconds. And if you're writing something or you're reading something, just pause. Right? If you're driving, turn the music off and just drive and take deep breaths. Just be conscious. Just 5 deep breaths. And if you do it for one day, say, you know what, I'll try that for one day. If you do it for one day, just notice how you feel. Notice. It makes a huge difference. And one of the things you're doing is you're milking your organs. So the liver's getting flushed a little bit, getting milked, getting pumped. The spleen's getting pumped. Your lungs are getting pumped. The heart's getting pumped. So that they flush out more toxins. The liver detoxes better. You break down these chemicals that we're all exposed to a little bit better. Just by breathing. Right? We have to take care of ourselves. Okay. The science tells us that in the development of autoimmune diseases, there's a trilogy. First, you have to have an environmental vulnerability. I'm sorry, you have to have a genetic vulnerability. You got the genes for Alzheimer's. That's the deck of cards you were dealt. You got the genes for celiac, you got the genes for diabetes, you got the genes for whatever it is. Doesn't matter. That's the deck of cards that you were dealt. And you'll learn how to live with it and thrive. But the gene. Second is an environmental trigger. So with celiac disease, it's wheat. When you eat wheat, it triggers, if you have the gene, it triggers celiac disease, right? With rheumatoid arthritis, it can be a bacteria. With MS, it can be a bacteria. That's all in the book. Third is your intestines. You have leaky gut. When you have this thing called pathogenic intestinal permeability, or leaky gut, then all this crud that's coming in through the GI tract goes right through the walls of the intestines into the bloodstream, because you have a leaky gut, so it's leaking into the bloodstream. Then your immune system's trying to protect you by making antibodies, and the result is you get all this inflammation, and wherever your weak link is, here comes the problems. Now that might take years to develop, but that's the mechanism. That's the primary mechanism. And it was Fasano at Harvard that first identified that the autoimmune process can be arrested, and that's the language they use, arrested, if you heal the gut. Right? Sometimes you don't have any control over the environmental triggers. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You'll have no control over the genes. That's what you got. But if you heal your gut, then most of those molecules can't get into the bloodstream to cause the damage. So that leaky gut concept, the technical term is pathogenic intestinal permeability, and this is what it looks like. So your intestines have pile carpeting. It's a tube 20 to 25 feet long. The inside is pile carpeting. In the US we call it shag carpeting. In Britain, shag has another term. I just realized that. Who's that comic with the shag? Who's that? I don't know, but anyway. So your vitamins and minerals are absorbed through the pile, the pile carpeting, and the bigger molecules can't get in. That's a chicken molecule. No, it's got to go further down your digestive tract to be broken down smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's broken down small enough that it can go right through the walls of the intestines into the bloodstream. It's like your intestines are coated with a cheesecloth, and cheesecloth doesn't let big stuff get through, right? It's like your grandmother, she poured gravy into the cheesecloth and only the liquid comes through, no clumps on this side. Does everybody know what I mean by that? Yeah, okay. So when you get tears in the cheesecloth, this is tears in the cheesecloth. It's called pathogenic intestinal permeability. Now watch what happens when that chicken molecule comes through. There it goes. Now it's in the bloodstream. Oh no, not tomatoes. Oh my God, that's bananas. I love bananas. What happened here? Okay. I scared it. There we go. There we go. But any of these big molecules that get into the bloodstream will trigger an immune response trying to protect you. Because those things aren't supposed to get in, but it's the damage to the gut that lets those things get in. They're called macromolecules, big molecules. So if you do a 90-food panel with a doctor to see what foods you're sensitive to, comes back and you've got 20, 25 foods, oh my God, that's everything I eat. Well, of course it is. Because your immune system's trying to protect you from these macromolecules that are getting in there. When you heal the gut, wait 4 to 6 months, heal the gut, then go back and check. Now you're only sensitive to 2 foods, maybe 3. Those are the ones you stay away from forever. Does that make sense to you? That's the leaky gut. And I wanted you to see that visual of the leaky gut. Now we can move on over.